No, this is lovely.
Nice.
Cool. Okay. So are we ready to start?
I think so.
Yes.
Dee, happy?
Perfect.
Fantastic. Welcome to Raise.
Coming up on this episode of Raise.
Coaching is not about how good you are now, it's how good you're going to be that really matters. And he talks about coaching in the context of, quite frankly, do you actually want to work for a sociopath that doesn't ever doubt themselves? I don't.
Yeah.
But it's one of those few spaces where you don't have to prove you're brilliant. Can we have a tiny row about it?
Yeah, absolutely row about it.
Don't pick up on imposter syndrome on top of a misogynistic, sexist world. Don't.
I mean, say it one more time louder for the people in the back.
Yeah.
Welcome to Raise. This is the podcast for fundraisers by fundraisers, and it's a space to share insights, stories, and strategies to elevate our industry. I'm Christine Neubeiser.
And I'm Sian Wilkinson-Iles, and today we are joined by the absolutely incredible Dee Brecker. Dee, we are thrilled to have you with us. When we talked about kind of starting this podcast, we made a list of people that we wanted to reach out to. And I'm not even joking when I say you were top of the list. Like, you were like the first person that we were like, yes, like, we have to get Dee on the podcast. Largely because you've been really influential in both of our lives, you know, even when it's just been kind of like 20-minute conversations with me, I've always come away from them feeling incredible and really bolstered and confident in that space. So thank you so much. And yeah, do you want to introduce yourself to the wonderful audience at Raise?
Thank you so much. That's such a lovely intro and I really appreciate it. And I'd like to be modest and say I'm not super chuffed that I was top of the list, but yay, I really like that. So I'm Dee. I have been a professional fundraiser for over 25 years, worked across all sectors, the environment, disability, the arts, the performing arts, international development. I've worked in central government and I've worked as a consultant. In January 2023, I set up my own thing, mainly with the objective of just trying to figure out what my next job would be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I registered my company to offer coaching and mentoring services. I qualified about 10 years ago and thought I would do some interim work and then get back into things. But currently, I run a coaching company,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm currently working with 14 professionals in the sector, and I specialise on mainly women who are new into leadership in their fundraising or communications or philanthropy roles.
Mm-hmm.
So they're either managers, heads of team, directors or CEOs, and have a handful of men. And probably about half of my client base are, identify as Black and racially minoritized. So again, they are a minority within a leadership space. The other third of my time is ad hoc consultancy. I do a lot of work with boards and with leadership teams, often, again, their engagement with fundraising. And the third of my time is I'm a director at 10 Years Time, which is a philanthropy advisory firm that works with grant makers, high net worth individuals in reparative and racial justice philanthropy.
Oh my gosh, it's so great that you're here. So excited.
Thank you for inviting me.
Just like your experience is so incredible. And as Sian said, we both have been able to have the pleasure of working with you. But I think broader than that, and I know you've been on several different types of panels and things like that, but mentoring and coaching in particular have been really big game changers for many women, and indeed like people who are starting out in their career in fundraising, as well as building a strong network to really gain that long-term success in their careers. So we're really just so delighted to have you here on Raise. And a really important aspect of this show is that it feels like we're sitting around with friends and having a drink and informal conversation. So even in this virtual environment, we like to start each episode with a cheers to raising money, voices, and glasses. So can we all do a little cheers together?
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, what are you having today, Sian?
I've got a red wine that came straight out of my wine rack, unknown at this stage, but tastes great. What about you, Dee? What have you got?
I've got water, just because I'm living in a household where everyone is sick. So I am nurturing myself at the moment. I refuse to get ill this week. Refuse.
Yeah, so
I love
important.
that.
I have been sick over the last couple of days, so I am also drinking water, but with a little bit of elderflower cordial for a bit of zing. And then I put it in a wine glass so I would feel special. Dee, you and I met and had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about how mentoring and coaching are terms that we hear a lot, but they can mean different things to different people, and indeed they are distinct. So I'd really love if you could start by sharing your perspective on the difference between mentoring and coaching and why they're both essential.
There's a fantastic TED talk by a surgeon called Atul Gawande, the author of Being Mortal and the author of The Checklist, two of my favourite books. And he talks about coaching in a very specific sense. And he's got a lovely quote that says, coaching is not about how good you are now, it's how good you're going to be that really matters. And he talks about coaching in the context of it's the way that professionals get better. It's the way that professionals continue to grow when it's not going down the pedagogic route of books or learning or anything. It is observational. It's the things where you are getting in your own way, where you were overthinking things, where you can't see the wood for the trees. And coaching helps you to have a perspective on it. I think coaching and mentoring are very aligned, but they offer different things. And it's where the person that you're having the conversation with sits in that dynamic. So with a mentor, and I've mentored lots of people, and I still spend a lot of my time mentoring professionals coming up through the sector. Mentoring is where you are you're the lead, you're the expert, you're the person with technical know-how, with strategic experience, with 5 to however many years of having done that job and done that in different contexts in different ways, and you're partnering up with a individual at a different stage in their career who's looking to learn from you, and through your storytelling, through your sharing examples in how to move forward. It's often a good mentor will use a coaching approach, but it is around that okay, I've got an issue with my CEO, and it's like I've had exactly the same thing. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And it's that thing is that I've been there before, and I've handled something like that, and it's like, well, how did that work? How did you approach it? That element of, can I share this with you? Yep, let's work through that together. Whereas coaching, you are the focus.
Right.
You hold the power, you hold the control, and your coach is your guide. Your coach is there to listen, to observe, to call you out on things, to ask really good questions, to encourage you to do the thinking. That's the thing I really like about coaching, is that in every other context, as a professional and as a leader, and in a fundraising role, look, as fundraisers, we're rarely welcomed anywhere with open arms. We're always fighting our case, making our case for why we're there, demonstrating our openness for collaboration, for partnership, justifying our expertise, creating a reason for why we can have a seat at the table. There's a lot going on in our heads. And you add, if you're new into the role, if you're new into an organisation, if you're new into your leadership role, that every single time that you have a conversation with someone, whether you're sat in a meeting, whether you're sat over coffee, you are representing your profession, you're representing you as a leader, you're representing your organisation, you're representing your project. Coaching is a space where, if you get the right partnership, you can breathe out. Have you ever been in a meeting where someone said something and it's just got under your skin?
Yeah.
And
all
you
the
know,
time.
it's just
All the time.
and you know, it was either off the cuff or it was deliberately me. And it could be anything along that spectrum. You come out of that meeting and you find yourself for the next 1 day, 3 days, 1 week, you've got this thing going in your head about what you should have said, how you could have regained the space, how embarrassed you were, how many people noticed at that conference, that all the rebuilding you have to do with X who was in the room, where you just got all of the stuff, it's all in your head. That you can bring, and but you think, oh, I can't tell anyone about this because it's like it was a really off the cuff comment, and you test it out with someone and they didn't even notice the comment, but it still sits with you. Coaching is one of those spaces where you can bring that to say, why has this really got under my skin?
Yeah.
And you can take 5 minutes or 50 minutes or an hour and a half to unpick why that got under your skin, why it's been a block for you, why do you keep going back to it? And sometimes it's a distraction because actually you've got a paper to write and it's much easier to focus on it. So there's a whole heap of reasons. But knowing that you can unpick that with your coach, because by the time you've figured that out, I will guarantee that your next coaching session you might defer for 2 weeks because that block will unravel a whole load of things that you've actually just put on the back burner. But it's one of those few spaces where you don't have to prove your brilliance.
I have never felt more seen. For me as a fundraiser, like just even the beginning where you talked about kind of what it's like to be a fundraiser, where you're having to show up and advocate for yourself at every single flipping table because nobody really understands what you do. And I was telling Christine about this last year, but I remember sitting in the kitchen at work and I could overhear a conversation and someone was like, oh, that's Sian, she looks after public fundraising. But they don't really do anything. It's just reactive. There's no skill in that. And I just remember my heart broke because it's like you like having to show up and like advocate for yourself like again and again and again. And like, yeah, that coaching element, like just for me, I was like, yes, I feel like so seen in this space. I think that is so, so important because it is hard. Like we show up every day, we're getting told no it'll work, we're getting told no by people,
no by donors
asking for money, right? Like
Yes.
we talked about this when we like in our very first episode where we launched the podcast. Like fundraising can be really lonely, and like
Hugely lonely.
this and that. I think like that coaching space is so important because you can have that shared space with someone where you're going, I feel really stuck, I feel really lonely, and I don't know where to turn, and I don't know who I can like build and grow this out with. Like help.
And it's quite emotionally draining. And
It's
people
really
don't
emotionally draining. Yeah.
and it's very hard to say because you are expected to bounce through the office.
Yeah.
You're expected to hold an energy
Yes.
that the whole organization feels. You have this conundrum where in order to be successful in your fundraising, from public fundraising through high value fundraising, all of them, and the huge overlap in between, that actually your high value fundraising is built upon the warmth that is instinctive within your team that comes from the way that you engage with your public, and that whole sense of the relationship between the donor and your organization and the difference that together you make. If you can't show that love and respect and courtesy to someone giving you £1, £10, you sure as hell can't do that as an organization with someone giving you 10 million.
There's a real resilience that fundraisers have to innately have. And you can cultivate and grow as well. But you naturally, I think, have to be quite a resilient individual to be a good fundraiser or to be able to do this career. That being said, just because you are very resilient doesn't mean that you should have to be this resilient all of the time. And there's a space where everyone needs kind of that step back moment. But the stakes are so high. Like if fundraisers don't achieve their goals, ultimately that means a part of the organization isn't going to continue.
Yes.
So the stakes are incredibly high. There's not a huge amount of respect for the profession of fundraising because it's like there's this wonderful mantra that exists that like everyone's a fundraiser.
I know exactly what I was going to say. I know exactly where you're going.
And that is great because everyone should be like for fundraising, should be championing it. Like that's what that mindset means. That doesn't mean that everyone has the skill to be a fundraiser. Those are not the same. That's not what that saying means. And I think that difference is so critical. And so when we think about mentoring and coaching for fundraisers, like the strength or like the mindset to be able to parse that and hold those differences is so critical.
Dee, one of the things like I just wanted to pull out that really resonated with me as you were just talking, and I was like, yes, more of this, please, was you talked about coaching as a who do you want to be tomorrow? Like who's the woman you want to be next year? And I love that, like change mentality, that growth mindset, that like like I want to go out and get this. Like I want to go out and like be the very, very best person that I can be, because I feel passionately about this cause that I'm out there fundraising for on a day in, day out. And I want to bring my very, very best into that space. Like I guess I just wanted to pick up and hear more about that, because like I just loved it.
So coaching, mentoring, counselling, therapy, different things. And coaching and mentoring, I think, should be intertwined. Some people focus very much on the coaching and less on the mentoring. But what it's not is it's not in a therapy space or a counselling space. So the best you want to be is really firmly focused on you as a professional. And that's what's lovely about it in the coaching space, because it means that you don't have to. It's not I mean, yes, there are career coaches, but actually, if you're coming in for, say, executive coaching, your conversation is, by X age or in the next 5 years, I want to be looking for a CEO role, or I want to have moved from small to medium charities and to be working in an international global division where my direct reports are 25 direct reports because I'm looking after a team of 200. And I've got people in my network that I can have a conversation with to understand what techniques, skills, experience would get me shortlisted. But what I really want to work on is, how do I show up? What do I need to shift about where I am today? How I come into a room? How I engage with people? What do I need to learn from each of the things that I'm doing at the moment, so that when that door opens, when that crack opens and I see it through, and there's an opportunity or that choice conversation that you've had, that you look back in hindsight, is that was the point when I should have followed it up and said, or I should have sent my CV in, or I should have applied. Actually, you apply, you do the interview, and you're okay with the interview because you know what you are bringing.
Yeah.
People focus too much on the technical skills. They don't lose it on the technical skills. They lose it because hiring managers, personal opinion, lack courage when it comes to fundraising.
Yeah.
Hiring managers do not fully understand that you actually want to hire people from smaller organisations, not the bigger ones, because it is a damn sight harder to engage people in giving out money in a smaller organisation without the resources and without the brand name behind it. So their tenacity and creativity and their capacity to build internal collaborations is higher and is not a blocker. If you want someone to bring you in 7 and 8 figure gifts, they don't need a track record of bringing 7, 8 figure gifts. They just need a track record of working collaboratively with the leadership of an organisation to craft something that is transformational. Yeah. Whether that transformation comes out of £100,000, £1 million, or 10 million, it actually is the same conversation internally. But the coaching piece, that technical piece, you can deal with. Mentoring your friends in the sector, you're learning, you're going to seminars and workshops. But that head shift, that shift internally, where you walk into a room and that donor knows that they and their passion and their ambition is safe with you. You go in and you meet that trustee at an interview, and that trustee goes, this division and this department, this organisation is safe with you. Yeah. You bring boldness and create whatever it is that you bring to the table, because we all have different qualities, but that sense of, she's got this.
Yeah.
That's the bit that coaching can help you with. That's the bit for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, completely.
Honestly, I feel like I'm like getting closer to the screen because I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I'm like leaning. Well, it sparks a question for me around vulnerability, actually, sure, in that moment, because, a lot of times, especially as women, when you're developing in your career, vulnerability can be seen as a really negative thing, and you kind of belittle yourself and always are trying to kind of fight this imposter syndrome and all of that. But I'm wondering about in the mentoring and coaching space, it feels like that vulnerability actually plays an important part, or does it play an important part? And how do you kind of let yourself be in that vulnerable state to have really encouraging conversations or useful conversations or challenging conversations?
Oh, there's a lot in there. Okay, let's not lose all of those threads. Let's talk about, because you flipped with talking a little bit about vulnerability, and you also connected it to our tendency, particularly as women leaders, to self-deprecate, to create an environment where the other people feel bigger and better and more important.
Yeah.
And part of you feels that's what you should do. And the other part of your brain goes, literally, they've just now seen Mr. Tea Lady.
Yeah.
And someone's going to ask me to take minutes in a moment, and that's going to drive me insane. And you're constantly thinking, how do I create a space that is going to make this conversation work without diminishing myself? And that is different to vulnerability. So your vulnerability in your team leadership, and your vulnerability with your team, your vulnerability with your peers, your vulnerability with your donors it's about knowing that you don't have all the answers. And it's a vulnerability to being okay when you screw up. And it's a vulnerability to be open and truthful when things happen. So I'm a big believer in Hanlon's razor, which I'm now going to quote completely wrong, but essentially it says, don't attribute to malice that which can be attributed to stupidity, or nicely assume positive intent.
Yes.
So the vulnerability with your teams, the vulnerability that you want to foster within your teams would be, me as your leader, I assume positive intent within the team. I assume that, like me, we want to do our best. We want to raise tons of money. And we want the people that are giving us money to feel absolutely brilliant in doing so, to know that their money is making a difference, and to know that we respect and appreciate them giving that. And we want to get that whole package right. So when your team comes to you and goes, okay, right, I don't know how to tell you this, but I've really, really, really screwed up. They know that you have invited that vulnerability for them to tell you, because you receive that with like, it's okay, I've got this. I deal with the shit that's going to fall because I'm your leader and I put that umbrella up and I will protect you from that. Let's figure out how we're going to sort that out. I will deal with the people that are going to make the biggest noise. You go sort the problem out, but we've got this. And that vulnerability is reflected. You have to be that open with your team. Can I tell a story?
Yes,
it was during COVID, and I was dealing with a potential 8-figure gift, and I had a donor, and some of my team were furloughed, and there were 3 of us, and we started meeting for half an hour at the beginning of the day just to kind of check in on each other. And I got this donor call so wrong. Oh my God, it was so bad. You know, when you literally make every mistake in the book, to the point where halfway through the call, the donor was like this, literally turned away. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that I had someone adult in the room, it would have been a complete disaster. But I came on the call the next morning and just went, oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. And I told my team how bad it was, and I showed them how much it hurt, and I showed them how upset I was. And they went, oh, and suddenly they connected in one as humans, as my colleagues, and as fundraisers. So I was caught in the emotion of being mortified. Oh my God, I was so embarrassed, and I was so angry, and I was also hurt. I was caught in the whole emotion of it, and my colleagues held all that and then went, okay, right, have you fixed this? No, I don't know how to fix this. Man turned his back on me on screen. How on earth am I supposed to fix this? And they went, here's what we think. And between the 3 of us, spent the next half an hour bouncing back and forth solutions.
Yeah.
Now, even though I was their director, it didn't shift them respecting me as a director. What it showed is that I was willing to learn and to grow, and that I respected their professionalism in doing so. That, I think, is vulnerability.
Yeah.
The self-deprecation is where we feel we should have. So can we have a little argument about imposter syndrome?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Can we have a tiny row about it?
You
Yeah.
can absolutely row about it. I don't know. I feel like I'm just going to agree with you though, so we may not row.
You may not, but so I had a discovery call with a potential client a couple of months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and she kept talking about imposter syndrome. I went, I'm not your girl. I said, I can give you some names and some other coaches, but I'm not your person. She went,
Right.
well, I was like, yes, but you say that you like working with. It's like, yeah, but I don't believe in imposter syndrome. We are women in a society that was designed by men for men.
Mm-hmm.
So every single step forward that we have made is against the odds. So why would we take on a syndrome
Mm-hmm.
that blames us for being a minority in a space, in a system where we're not designed to be hurt? That literally just passes the buck again. I don't pick up that buck. It can go. I was about to swear, so sorry. But it's like I'm not having it. Don't
Yeah.
pick it up. It's not your it's not your problem to pick up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people also conflate imposter syndrome with sometimes having a lack of confidence. Quite frankly, do you actually want to work for a sociopath that doesn't ever doubt themselves? I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am perfectly comfortable with leadership that has some doubts. What I want you to do as a leader is to make a goddamn decision and accept that the buck falls with you and deal with it if it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
Deal with it. Deal with those that you're accountable with. Deal with the leadership. Help us fix it. Hold yourself accountable. Make a decision.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be right. You don't have to have all the answers. You can have self-doubt. You can come out of a meeting and go, I never recovered with that donor.
Right.
But what I did learn is what I needed to do to help all the other people that he was prepared to engage with to get the job done and to get the gift over the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my team helped me pick up my tattered self-esteem and just be totally upfront with my boss, who was 3 levels above me, and go, okay, that didn't work. But here's what I'm going to, you are then now going to have the meetings that I would have had, but this is what I will do to make sure that you're always prepared and in those meetings.
Yeah.
And I will come in and I will be a note taker. So we changed the script. That is different to self-deprecating. I lost my confidence. My team helped me regain. It's like, do you know what you're doing? You're fine. You know how to deal with donors.
Yeah.
What do you need to do to support X and Y to get this gift over the line? The imposter syndrome bit is, I was listening to LBC this morning, weirdly, James O'Brien, and he was talking about some stuff that's in the news at the moment around inappropriate comments and jokes being made. And we have all been in that circumstance as a female fundraiser with an absolutely uncomfortable power dynamic. Don't pick up on imposter syndrome on top of a misogynistic, sexist world. Don't.
I mean, say it one more time louder for the people in the back.
Yes.
Don't pick up imposter syndrome as a narrative, because this is a sexist, misogynistic world. You are not an imposter. You have nothing to apologize for.
Yeah.
Embrace your self-doubt and go, okay, what actually is behind this doubt? Is it actually that it's something that I've not done? Do I need to be the expert in that, and do I know someone? You can always, if you take a moment to sit and to breathe and sit with yourself and go, okay, this has clearly unsettled me, terrified me, my heart's been, whatever that spectrum of emotions is. Why? Why do I feel so deeply uncomfortable about this?
Yeah.
Why am I nervous about the fact that my CEO has just said, go and? It's not imposter syndrome. Self-doubt is okay. Crippled by it, yes, talk to someone about my self-doubt is getting in the way of me. But no, I won't have the women that I encounter, my friends, my families, my daughter, my colleagues, my friends that we're having drinks with in a podcast, I won't have this thing where we pick up another reason to belittle ourselves and say we don't belong in the room.
Yeah.
Nonsense. You went through a selection and recruitment process that was
Mhm.
brutal. I bet you it was at least 3 stages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you passed to probation. There is no imposter there. You've just
Yeah.
hit a tricky whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I think my mind is reeling, and I don't think I'd even considered it. And I think, but also I think you're so right in that I can wrap a lot of things up in imposter syndrome often. And like me and Christine are both massive advocates of therapy. Like we do it regularly. I firmly believe going to therapy makes me a better leader. I think it makes me a better manager. And you're right. Like, that is the space for my anxiety. That is the space for my stress. That is the space for my, I don't feel like I'm bringing my great self to being a manager this week because this one person said one thing and it's thrown me for the entire week. And now I'm doubting myself.
It's just such a good like kick in the pants, I think, that you need sometimes too. Like that you're like, okay, look, that's not what this is. And these are other tools to use to address what is going on. And you're right. Like I wrapped a lot into that one question because I was like, I don't really know how to ask this because I have a lot of feelings in this space. And it's really helpful to parse that and hold it.
But there are always a lot of feelings involved.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a used car salesman. I'm not a mugger. I'm not a thief. And I'm not a con artist.
Right.
I have a conversation with someone who may never have heard about the cause that I'm representing. And we sit down and they give me space to understand the things in this world that they are passionate about, the wrongs, the inequities, the inequalities that get under their skin that they wish that they could do something about. But actually, I can only afford to give £1,000 a year. And they give me an opportunity to say, do you care about X? I do actually. Well, your money could combine forces with all these other people who also care about this cause. And this organisation is really brilliant at it. Can I talk to you a bit more about that? That is not theft. It's listening. It's warmth. It's a relationship. Your heart is in it because you are trying so hard not to be dishonest. You're trying so hard to not promise things that you know your programs team can't deliver, that your data and research team can't do, that your insight teams have not shown you. You've got all of these things happening in your head.
Yeah.
And you come away and you're absolutely elated. And some bugger's going to say, oh, £1,000?
Yeah.
Oh, we really wanted 5.
Yeah. Like, oh, that's just not good enough. And it's like, you part with £1,000 right now. See how that feels for you.
And they've always got a story about this excellent fundraiser that they met at something.
Yeah.
And someone's always got a story about an organisation down the road from them that only has 3 people in the team but raises as much as your 14 people. And why do you need more people?
Yeah.
It's hard. Your emotions are huge in there because you carry the brunt of the disappointment that your team feels and the disappointment and the anxiety that your organisation has if you are consistently under target. You know full well that if you're consistently under target, there's going to be a conversation about your reserves. Can we carry this underperformance through this next auditing process without making restructures, redundancies, closing a project, shutting something down, whatever?
Yeah.
And you've then also got to rally yourself, rally your troops, rally other people, say, I think if we repackaged X and Y together and repurposed X and Y story and such volunteer story and such whatever, we could maybe re-energize the fundraising towards that. Of course, you've got feelings in it. And you're constantly trying to get people to engage with you. And when you get it wrong, it's like, oh my God, if only I was as good a fundraiser as Christine, I'd have nailed it. So that's what you end up thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just not a good fundraiser.
Yeah, and it's just there's so many other things at play there that aren't your skill as a fundraiser at all. And the performance of an organization, just to say on that too, it's not that maybe a fundraising team doesn't achieve their targets because maybe the targets weren't real to begin with or achievable, but is the organization actually operating with as much efficacy as they need to be operating with to get the value from money? Like there's a lot of things that go into that, but the brunt falls onto fundraising because that's the easiest thing to pick on because you're responsible for bringing in the money. So
And I don't want to turn this into a gripe. What I'm saying is that the reason why I feel coaching and mentoring is so important for us is that when you fundraising's like this, and sometimes when it's on this and you haven't hit the bottom of the slump yet, and you've got to pick your team up the other side before it starts to lift, it can feel overwhelming. And you can feel like all you're doing is complaining and second guessing and whatever. Can I add a third thing into the coaching and the mentoring? Can I talk about networks as well? Because they're interconnected. This is just like fundraising is everybody's role. And I loved the fact earlier that both of you were talking about this narrative that happens in an organization where we're all fundraisers. Actually, our non-fundraising colleagues, we just want them to just be straight up with everyone that they come across is we're a charity. And in order to do what we do, we need to raise money. Please, would you have a talk to one of my fabulous colleagues?
yeah. Yes, please.
That's it. That's all you need. That's all the fundraising they need to do is just be straight up. We're a charity and we need to raise money.
Yeah.
We do great things through your help.
Mm.
The coaching is the professional space, the space where you as a technical professional looks at the qualities that you hold so that you continue to grow and be better. Mentoring adds on the technical expertise, the skill sets, the mechanics from someone who's done this for years. Your coaching will help you think about your body language, how you want to come across, the way that you speak, the way that you structure it, the way that you respond to things. There's a whole complexity of you as a professional, but your network, oh my God. People think of networking in the same horrible way as to, oh my God, I don't want to go into this networking thing. And it's like, just think about your introduction. Just say, hi, I'm Dee. I'm a coach and a consultant, and I recently, about 3 years ago, moved to Ep2, and trees are my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Every Sunday, I bathe myself in trees for 2 hours with my best friend, her dog, my daughter's dog, and a bacon sandwich. Somewhere with all of that, someone will find something to have a conversation with you about.
Yeah, there'll be something.
So, but your networks are your source of everything. If you purposefully and intentionally cultivate your network online or in person of people that interest you, people that are curious about things that you're curious about, people that are knowledgeable about things that you wish you had knowledge of, and that you have thought quite intentionally about what can you do as well. So
Yeah.
the three of us in our engagements with each other, it's never been one-sided.
No.
It's never been one of you coming to me or me coming to you. There's always been a reciprocity in there.
Yeah.
There's always been a sense of, I know I can ask Sian that.
Yeah.
And there's always been a sense of it's all right, I can run that past you. Knowing that she can come back to you and say, do you know someone who? Your network is the fabric of how you grow, how you professionally develop, and who you know in the sector. It's not a black book just for the sake of it. It is around being able to, one of the best things is being able to say, do you know someone I'm really stuck with? It's all right, I know someone.
Mm-hmm.
I met them so and so, or I had a conversation with them there. And no, it's fine. It was a warm conversation. We had a great chat about X and Y, but I was really impressed with how he or she or they talked about X or Y subject. I'm sure they'd have a conversation with you. I'll connect you up on LinkedIn. Your network is the space where you can say, particularly if you're intentional with it, if you are committed to the reciprocity of it,
Yeah.
And when you connect up with someone on LinkedIn, do that courtesy thing of liking what they've said, making the odd comment, or even tagging in other people in your network. Because what will start to happen is that you will be stuck with something. You will get stuck. And you don't necessarily want to have a conversation with someone inside your organisation. It's not a day you're speaking with your coach. You try to have a call, that's not there. Your mentor's away. You can message that person or pick up the phone and say, have you got 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I could really do with talking through an idea that I've had. Or would you recommend, with redoing our CRM, would you recommend something? Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But networking is too much shaped in our psyche about is someone better than me in the room? Is there someone more interesting in the room for me to talk to? Are there people in this room that can do something for me, rather than there's a bunch of people here who are interesting?
I feel like you've just like hit the nail on the head of what this podcast is as well, like in a really beautiful way. Like just that sense of being able to pick up the phone and ask those questions in a really safe space where you have that psychological safety with someone to be like, what do you think? Can you help? Like the amount of texts I get in a week being like, exactly as you said, like CRM, thinking about switching to CRM, who do you use?
Yes.
I hazard a guess I get that text twice a week.
Yep.
From Christine last week, in fact. So
it's really important.
It is really important. It's so important.
Yeah.
Dee, you're going to give me a really tough editing job. I don't think there's anything I want to cut out that we've talked about. It's going to be a chunky podcast. And can I ask, we've talked about coaching and we've talked about the importance of it and the power that it can have in the room. Where do you start? So if you are new to this and you don't have a coach and maybe you don't have tons of budget in your L&D or you're halfway through the L&D year and it's too late to ask, where can you start to do this work so you can start to kind of embed some of that amazing coaching work either with your team, so like how can you start to embed some of that in there, or like how can you go out and get it yourself?
Okay. That's a really lovely question. Where to start is start with your network.
Okay.
Start with the people that you know and the people that you trust, and ask them, have they had a coach? And if so, how they found their coach.
Yeah.
Like a therapist, a coach will offer you between 15 to 30 minutes free in what's normally called a chemistry call. I'm a fundraiser, so I always call them discovery calls. Sorry. But that should offer you space to do two things. Firstly, to say where you're at, but be careful. Don't use the whole 30 minutes in you talking at them. Think about what you want to say at first and keep it to 2 to 3 minutes, and then ask them. Say, how do you, because what you want is you want to use your all of the things in you that help you understand about rapport and connection and thinking. You want to get your coach to talk so that you can tune into the way that they phrase things, that you listen to how they talk about the way that they work and the space that they're creating for you, and the way that they will guide and help you think about everything that you're brilliant at today and how much better you're going to be tomorrow, and how they want to be on that partnership and that journey with you. Too many people will spend a lot of time talking in detail about where they're at and where they want to be, and then they come to the end and their coach has only got 2 or 3 minutes to speak. If your coach allows that, I would query whether they are someone who has given you enough for you to ascertain whether they're the right partner for you.
Yeah.
Coaching absolutely should be controlled by you as the coachee. So there's a counterintuitiveness in this. In the coaching session, you should be the person doing most of the thinking and most of the talking. But in the discovery call, you want to have you want your coach to speak,
Yeah.
And you want to have enough gaps where you can say, so tell me more about that. Or how many how important do you feel that I really want someone who knows about fundraising or the voluntary sector? Your
Yeah.
coach may not know anything about fundraising or the voluntary sector and would then share with you why they feel that's not important. And that might really be wonderful for you. You might really want to be held in a space where someone doesn't have the same expertise, but is so used to working with leaders in a developmental style that's like, that's actually what I want. That's the thing. I actually want a coach that um, uses lots of 360 or will take
Mhm.
me through this tool or that tool. Other
Yeah.
coaches like me don't take you through lots of tools, don't do lots of assessments with you
Yeah.
because I blend the coaching and the mentoring. If you talked about budget, Sean, the coaches that I know have a sliding scale. So we have a charity rate, we have an organisational development rate, i.e., your charity, your organisation has invested in you, in which case HR or your finance director will have a rate for those type of services. And most coaches will align with that rate or be straight up and say, that's a little bit low, or no, that's fine. And they will also have a private client rate where you may say, actually, the organisation hasn't got any budget, but I would really like to work with a coach. What do you charge on your private client rate?
Mhm.
And often the big organisational or the higher education tends to subsidise the very small charities or and the private client rate. Coaches are different. That's what a lot of people who work around different sectors will do. But speak and be, just as you're fundraising, be upfront. Ask really at the beginning about your fee and the fee structure. What you might also want to consider is group coaching. So
Mhm.
you may find someone to say, actually, I'd really like coaching for my whole team
Mhm.
and a group context where we, through the facilitation that you offer as a coach, we start to get better at how we coach each other, how we ask each other really good questions,
Mhm.
how we encourage each other in our thinking and our purpose and the way that we work. And be always be straight up about what you think you're looking for and go with your gut and be okay that if after the discovery call, if it doesn't gel and it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. It's okay.
Can I ask a question? Um, just a final question on that. Of like, is it okay if you don't actually know what you want? Like, if you start the discovery call and you're like, right, I know I need a coach, or I know I want to have a coach, but I don't actually know the style that I think is going to work best. Like, is that okay?
Absolutely, absolutely 100%. So your conversation would be, I don't know what I want. And if that was a conversation, it would be like, so what do you think? What do you know?
Right.
Or what prompted you to even, but it's like, it doesn't even have to be a fixed thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it needs to be a fixed thing. You can just come and say, I don't know what I want. I don't know what type of support and I don't know where but there will be something that prompted you to make the decision to reach out to book the call.
Yeah.
And that can be a really good starting point. Okay, you say you don't know what you want, but what made you reach out today?
Yeah.
What made you commit? You're a busy person. What made you commit to this conversation today?
Yeah.
And let's start there.
And I think it's so important that you have to want it. So, like, your line manager could recommend you, I think a coach would be really valuable for you. I think a mentor would do this for
Yes,
you. But if you as a person don't actually want to take that step and do it,
yes,
there's nothing they can do that really makes you do it or get out of it what you have the potential to get out of it too.
yes,
It's a very like self-motivated thing, I think, to
yes. I mean,
go.
and then because often mentoring is quite business focused.
Mm-hmm.
Not always. Sometimes it is around, I want to be at director level in 18 months' time, and the mentor is walking alongside you with that journey. Your coaching, your coaching is space for you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just space for you to think. and to talk and to explore and to be challenged. And pretty much every session, you'll get a shift and you'll feel it. And it'll be quite subtle, but you'll feel a shift. And you will have homework to do. You'll have intentional behavioural shifts, changes, actions to do as a result of the session that you've had. So yes, your motivation to learning, you will waste your money and your organisation's money if you have a session, you've agreed that you're going to try some things, or your coach sends you an article to read or a TED talk to listen to, or a YouTube to delve into, or a book to pick up, and you don't. It's fine, because the conversation will unlock things. So you won't stay stagnant, but you won't get as much shifting as you would.
Completely.
Amazing. I honestly, Dee, I feel blown away by this entire conversation, and I'm
a very nice thing to say.
I'm loath to ask you this because I don't even think it's probably possible to kind of condense everything that we've talked about. If there was one thing you would like everybody listening today to take away with them, to hear, to remember, to know, what would kind of be that one key bit of advice that you're just anchor yourself in this?
What you do is hard, and it requires a lot from you. And your strength as a professional and a leader is knowing that it's okay to ask for help. That help might be from your network, that help might be from your manager, that help might be from a mentor, and that help might be from a coach. Because an investment in you and your skills, and you as a professional and as a leader, as a manager, as a fundraiser, is about, I'm good today, but I will be better tomorrow.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience.
Thank you so much for today. I've so loved chatting with you both. And I'm sorry for my very long answers, but Christine,
No. It's been fantastic. And you've really just illuminated so many things that we've talked about. You've challenged thinking. It's been just fantastic. I feel like I could talk all night. But on a personal note, I also just wanted to say thank you so much, because you've just been such an incredible sounding board, and I always adore working with you and getting to have every conversation that we do. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you both for being in my network, for always being generous with your time and your advice and your counsel. It's reciprocated. You are incredible. And it was a privilege to be on with you today and to share a glass of water.
Yes.
No, honestly, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. And to our listeners, we hope today's episode has really inspired you. And remember, Raise is about elevating each other. So I really hope you've come away from today kind of as inspired and challenged as I currently feel. Being Christine, we're talking about filming an imposter syndrome episode this week. Christine, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board on that one because I've got some thoughts.
Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, and share this episode with anyone you think would find it helpful. You can find us on LinkedIn at This Is Raise, on our website, thisisraise.co.uk, and you can follow us on Instagram at Raise Charity Pod, where Sian really is the social media genius that we all know her to be, and I am not.
But coming from the person that's asked for the login details twice now.
Yeah. I can't even log in. It's fantastic. But I like everything, so here we are. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Raise. Should we do one final cheers?
Yeah, you final cheers. Cheers.
Okay. Cheers.
Amazing.